Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone, and today we are going over the 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. The meta is sort of settled. We knew what was good, and then Agamotto and Eson came out and threw a big monkey wrench into it, so we're actually not going to go over 10 decks. We're going to go over 11 and then give you like 5 or 6 honorable mentions. These are full deck guides with card replacements and everything else you could possibly need. Our first list is, as it has been for a while, Scream. This is the mid-range deck. There's a whole other side of the meta that's not mid-range, but Scream right now is the best mid-range deck. It is my personal perspective that at this point, the best Scream decks want to be running Agamotto. Agamotto is insane. One of his spells, the one that moves something to the right and gives -5 power, is completely insane with Scream. That's -7 plus 2. If you can play that with Scream on the board, that's a 9 power swing for 2 energy, which is, again, completely freaking absurd. Everything else about this deck is just so strong. This will usually, not always, but usually end up dying to Hela. If you can manage to throw a priority, though, Cannonball can sometimes steal even those games for you. Scream can make their other stuff small enough, clog a lane, so on and so forth, that you can actually pull off wins. I love this list. This version is from Alliance Lowell, who used it to get to rank 2 on the Infinite leaderboard as he hit Infinite. This is, again, a real deck. The only card, that you really need for Scream decks as a high series card is Scream itself. That's part of what makes Scream such a great value, is that this is both a budget deck and a high series deck. If you don't have Cannonball or Agamotto, we're looking at Heimdall, Legion, Magneto, or Arrow. Hydra Bob can be Nebula, Nightcrawler, or Kingpin. Iron Patriot and Sam Wilson, one will be Lizard, and you can make sure that Lizard stays a 6 power because you have all this move. And then Rocket and Groot can be Red Guardian, Rogue, Luke Cage, or Enchantress. Any of those are perfectly fine replacements. If you don't have some of that high series cards, if you didn't buy Agamotto, for example, and we will give our weekend review for Agamotto and Eson later this video, but if you don't have Agamotto, feel free to run instead this classic Scream. This is the version that is Agamotto free. Running one low series card in replace of Agamotto, Arrow, and it's still showing Arrow as a 10, sorry about that. But this list is still absolutely incredibly strong and one of the best in Marvel Snap. Again, you're probably going to lose to like your Hellas and Mr. Negatives with this, but almost everything else is beatable here. And you have an okay shot against Negative if you can get their negative lane clogged for an easy win and use Cannonball to win another lane. So this sets the mid-range meta. This is the like you must be this tall to ride of mid-range. Turn 1, Hydra Bob. Turn 2, Scream, and Scream is a snap condition. I have noted this a million times. Glenn has now said this very publicly. Glenn Jones, the Marvel Snap's lead designer, says Scream on play has a similar win rate to Mr. Frickin' Negative on play. That's absurd. Scream on 2 is a snap. If you don't have Scream, I think you're usually playing Sam. Sometimes you'll be playing Iron Patriot, but generally speaking, you want Sam Wilson, and if not, you can play Kraven. Turn 3, Polaris, if you have Scream or Kraven, is an incredibly strong play. If you're playing Sam, Kraven on 3 is not terrible. Rocket and Groot is generally fine, as is whatever other 2 you want. If you drew Scream, you can play Scream now, but you can also just play Scream and another 2 on turn 3, and that's still totally fine. Turn 4, if you got a move, you can play as 3+1. This is a really good time if you played Polaris last turn to do something like Rocket and Miles here. Very powerful play. You can also do a 2+2, especially if you played Scream early. Spidey is generally speaking a turn 4 play, and that goes really well with the last time you can play Iron Patriot. Iron Patriot being obviously an incredibly strong play at this point in the game. This is your last chance to get the discount on that card, which is still one of the more powerful things to do in the entire game of Marvel Snap. You can also just cold drop Stegron, especially if it's trying to clog. Polaris and Stegron are sort of stealth clog cards. If you can get an Iron Patriot to trigger with a powerful card, if you can get Stegron or Polaris to clog a lane, any of those are fundamentally snap conditions as well. Turn 5, you want Stegron and Miles. If you went the 2+2 Spidey and Iron Patriot, Stegron and Miles all but guarantee you that cheap Iron Patriot card. Or you can do a 3+2, or you can just drop Agamotto. Getting that last Iron Patriot card here, or keeping Miles or Hydra Bob for that last turn, is extra powerful here because your play is basically Agamotto or Cannonball. If you've got Cannonball, it can be an auto lane winner, but sometimes you're going to need that extra 1/6, 1/4, or whatever the hell Iron Patriot gives you to win the lane, and Agamotto is just a 5/13, and 5/13 is an awful lot of stats. All right, one last look at this list before we get going to the next deck, but we also have to ask you to hit that sub button if you're willing. We are doing our very best here on this channel to bring you the best decks the most often. We cover at least 3 brand new decks every single day. That is not 5 days a week. That is 7 days a week. Sometimes we do 2 videos a day. Tomorrow we will have 2 videos in the day. Every Friday we give you the best decks in Marvel Snap as determined by me, mostly with a look at the stats. I know all the top decks. I speak to all the top infinite players in order to know what the very best is, and I bring it to you. We're trying to hit 25,000 subs in 2025, and your sub would really help us out, and we'll give you the most content possible in return. Plus, this video is going to come with a free Agamotto. All you have to do is sub, like, and then later this video, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. That comment will enter you to win a free copy of Agamotto, who again, we will be reviewing later this video. If you are interested in that, you just stay tuned and make sure that you leave that comment about Agamotto later this video, or that comment to win Agamotto later this video. The same thing is true of every video this week. We're giving away 5 copies of Agamotto this week, so please make sure that if possible, you are going back and watching those videos and commenting. We have a ton of great decks in them. All right, we have to talk about Hela. Hela is the meta deck. Hela is the best deck in Marvel Snap, almost guaranteed. It's the best deck for hitting infinite. It's the best deck at high infinite. It's the best deck at regular infinite. Hela is absolutely dominating at basically all levels. This is the best version of the Hela list. We've talked about this multiple times. I'm very sick of talking about it already, but we can't do a top 10 decks without the deck that sets the meta. It's not unbeatable, but it is the best and most consistent right now. Hela is not meant to be that. They keep reworking Hela, so it's not that. Hela should not be the best deck in Marvel Snap. It is my assumption because of this, because they've done this multiple times, that Hela will be nerfed into frickin' oblivion. This will not be a card or a deck that exists relatively soon in the game. By next Thursday's OTA, I expect Hela to get hit really, really hard, and we should not be seeing this deck anymore. But for the time being, if you want to climb right now, this is where to go if all you care about is winning. I traded this version of the list, but so did, like, simultaneously, Paramanilow, Ika, and Cam Best. Literally, we all came up with the exact same Hela list after the Scar buff because the damn list built itself. Make sure that you check the next one for changes. There's an almost all Series 3 version, but for this version, if you don't have Thunderbolt, feel free to run Adam Warlock. In some portions of the meta, the Adam Warlock version has a higher win rate in the first place. If you'd like another version, this is just another version that is almost all Series 3. It's Series 3 plus Gore. That is very effective. If you would rather play this version than the other version, please feel free. It's nearly as good. I think the other version is better. This is nearly as good as an incredibly, incredibly strong deck. Oh, sorry. One big thing this one has to speak for it is this one is way better against Fenris Wolf. So if you're seeing a lot of Fenris Wolf or Mr. Negative, then this version is better because Silver Samurai gives you play into negative, and Gore is very, very, very strong against Fenris Wolf, because they will, as long as you've discarded something else, Fenris Wolf will grab that and you can still get your Gore. All right, so turn 1, you want Blade if Infinite, and anytime you can discard Infinite, that's a snap condition. The games where you can discard Infinite versus the games where you cannot are fundamentally incredibly different. Turn 2, Thunderbolt Ross. Turn 3, Lady Sif if Death or Infinite, and again, you can snap if it's Infinite. That's better than Swordmaster if Scar. I will, around turn 4, if I'm struggling to discard, take a 50-50 of Lady Sif with Infinite and Hela. If I hit Hela, I retreat. If I hit Infinite, I snap. Nice and simple. Turn 4 is 3 or Hellcow, because sometimes you're blading off an Infinite now, and then you've still got that Swordmaster for Scar or Death for Scar, as the case may be. You can also just drop Hellcow. Hellcow is also fine on turn 5. Turn 5, if you don't have Hela, or you can safely play Jubilee without risking discarding Hela, is a very, very good play because Jubilee is a great blink target. You can also feel free to trigger your Hellcow if Hela is not in hand and play Blink. If Hela is in hand, I will basically never freaking do that, though. I will not play Blink. I will instead play another card. Even if, like, Swordmaster discards nothing, that's the play. Turn 6 is Hela, and the second you realize you can get off a good Hela, and a good Hela means, let's just look quickly. It means, generally speaking, Black Cat and 2 of Scar Infinite Death discarded. If you've got that gone, Black Cat, and 2 of Scar Infinite Death, or just Infinite with Black Cat, then you should be snapping on Hela. If you don't have Hela, generally speaking, your last play should be Blink. You can Blade and Blink, but I tend to prefer, in those instances, to Hellcow on 5, and then trigger Hellcow. Once Hellcow has triggered, you can then Blink it off for Hela. Either way, make sure you use Hellcow before Hela in order to get a ton of power. This list is incredible. It is, again, the best in Marvel Snap right now. You should probably be playing this if you want to climb. Hey, make sure you check out tonight me streaming at twitch.tv/PulseGlazer. I will be live. We will have some giveaways and some great stuff. Make sure you check it out. Next up, our next list, we have Mr. Negative. And this is just sort of the standard negative, but BBAK played it to rank 3 last season, and BBAK was the first player who ever ranked highly with negative. He was number 1, not February of 2025, but February of 2024 with a negative list. So I'm going to credit him for this just because, like, the idea that negative could be popular at the top of the meta is sort of a BBK original, and he's playing it again. But this is a standard negative list. Why play this list? Well, Mobius isn't really in the meta right now because Hela doesn't give any kind of crap about Mobius. So without Mobius, negative is great. Plus, negative goes so tall, it easily outpowers Hela, one of the very few decks that do. As such, if people aren't countering it and people are running enough Enchantress to make this difficult, this ends up one of the very best decks. You can find BBK Snap on Twitter at that exact name. This deck needs Ravona, Gore, and Sage. Those three are non-negotiable. However, at least one is a Series 3 card, and Sage will have a bundle if you're missing her relatively soon. There's also this slightly cheaper version because now Null has gone to Series 3, and they gave everyone Null anyway. This one just needs Gore and Ravona. This one from Bullseye QWERTY is very, very strong, and even better in the Hela matchup, because once in a while you can go Shang into Zola and just sort of blow up their whole freaking world. It absolutely rocks Hela, and it's kind of hilarious in the way it does so. This one is very strong, and again, this one finished top 100 last season from Bullseye QWERTY. So this is the best I think negative has ever been. Negative keeps hitting new highs. I think we're nearing a point where there might need to be some kind of nerf on this card because negative is right now completely freaking insane unless you hard counter it. It's getting more and more consistent. So turn 1 you pass, turn 2 Ravona over Psylocke, and Ravona and Psylocke are generally speaking snap conditions. When you play Ravona and snap, the opponent should know it's negative. When you play Psylocke and snap, the opponent is stuck going, are they playing Galacta, are they playing Doom 2099, or are they playing negative? And unless they can answer all three, they should likely be running. You don't even actually have to have negative, although the way I do that is if I have negative, I snap before the Ravona or Psylocke, and if I don't have negative, I snap right after to try and chase opponents away. Make sense? Good. Turn 3, you generally speaking want negative. For the love of God, snap before you negative. Once in a while, they'll have Mobius. Just run. You'll run for 2 there just fine. Run for 4, as the case may be. You get enough 8 Coopers with this deck for it to not super matter. And outside of negative, you want to play Magic. I generally speaking rather prefer wait on Magic if possible. There's just not a lot of other plays. You can play the Psylocke or Ravona, as the case may be. If you ramped, you can also drop a Super Scroll here. I like to wait for Magic so the opponent can potentially waste a way to blow up Magic or not have the ability to play a card. But if you got a Magic early, you got a Magic early, and just, try not to get blown out. Try and consider what your opponent's playing. Turn 4, obviously negative. Negative still a snap on 4. But if you're playing negative on 4, you either need great draws, you need Magic, or you need Jane. Without one of those 3, negative on 4 can absolutely fail you. Just be forewarned, your opponent shouldn't be staying to find out, but it's Marvel Snap and people still do. Magic is still a perfectly fine play on turn 4, as is Iron Man. I wouldn't, generally speaking, be looking to play Super Skull unless I either need hand space or the opponent is telling me that that is a great play by what they're playing. Turn 5 is your last chance for Magic. If you only have 6 turns and no Magic, Jane Foster. If you have Magic, you're going to want to Jane on turn 6. You can also just drop Iron Man or Gore. You can go off on either turn 6 or turn 7, and go off just means play all the negative stuff. There are wins, however, that are either Gore, copied by Mystique and then playing Sage, or Gore into Taskmaster, or Iron Man on turn 5 into Mystique and Sage. Any of those all work. You need to be basically count and know that you can win. It is crazy how much power this deck puts up. Again, the best negative has ever been. Check out BBAK's version of this list. Super Scroll gives you a lot of play because we're going to look at another ongoing deck relatively soon. If you're interested, tomorrow during the day, please join our Discord. It's linked in the description of this and every video. We will be hosting a Snap Judges League tournament, King of the Hill single elimination tournament. So if you're interested, please make sure you go check that out in the link to the description to this video. All the information is right on that Discord if you're interested in playing on a Marvel Snap tournament tomorrow, Saturday. All right, next up we have Ika's Spaced Out. This deck has suddenly become meta because a low CL player named Bot played this to the top 5 last season. Ika created this list at the very beginning of February. It's like I had it as February 2nd with speed in the lizard spot. This is an incredible list. It's very, very powerful, very consistent, and it sort of threads the needle between both decks. You can find Ika, one of the best and most important deck builders in the game, streaming at twitch.tv/Ika_MTS. This deck needs Sam Wilson, Anti-Venom, Moonstone, and Ravona. Those 4 cards are non-negotiable. I know that makes it reasonably expensive, but there's plenty of decks in this video. You'll be okay. This used to have speed and now has lizard, so it has at least still gotten cheaper. By the way, when Moonstone first came out, everyone's like, Moonstone's good right now, but it's not like amazing. Let's see how it is later. Let's see how it is later. They keep releasing cards, and if you've checked the data mines for April, they keep releasing cards that make Moonstone better and better. Get ready. Moonstone is a card that is coming up huge in the meta. Also, Anti-Venom is in 2 lists here. I told you to buy that damn bundle if you could. All right, so if you don't have some of these cards, this is Derek's ongoing list. This is another cool version. This is the one I prefer to play. The other deck is better, but Derek's ongoing list is cooler and does more surprising things and thus wins more cubes. So if you're interested, please check out Derek ongoing. All right, so turn by turn and snapping. And again, this deck is important because this can occasionally beat the Hela stuff, and it can occasionally beat the mid-range stuff. Being able to sort of thread that needle is very important. Turn 1, you want Ant-Man. Turn 2 is Ravonna over Lizard, and Lizard's a perfectly fine play. If you're short, you're gonna cap. If you're short, you're gonna play Luke Cage, but Ravonna is generally preferred, especially if you're going to Moonstone. Mr. Fantastic, Cap, or Luke are all fine on turn 3. And again, if you're going to drop Moonstone, Mr. Fantastic or Cap are better. Luke is better if you played Lizard, and if you're going to go Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom if you have good cards in the deck, i.e. if you have Iron Man or Spectrum in the deck, and if you've played Luke. Moonstone if you've got Ravonna or Iron Man Mystique in hand, or if you've already got Mr. Fantastic or Cap. Turn 5 is Iron Man, generally speaking. Turn 6, you would like to copy Iron Man with Mystique and Mr. Fantastic or Cap. That is often a snap condition because everyone sits there and does Spectrum math. Your power, especially if you can play that Mystique under the Moonstone, is through the roof, and you play that with Captain America on that Iron Man lane. Captain America shoots the Iron Man lane up. Mystique makes the other Moonstone list dominant, and then you win. Or you can do Spectrum. Spectrum is perfectly fine here, and sometimes opponents don't do math, and you just steal wins with Spectrum too. Awesome list. Give it some run. This is one of the best in Marvel Snap. Again, Bot took this to the top 5 last season. I know Cam Best has been playing a lot of it. It's a top-notch list. Your season pass question, nice and early this video. See, real early. Please don't click off. Keep watching. I promise you've got more incredible decks. What's the best deck I missed? So there will be honorable mentions at the end. If you want to include one of those, feel free. If you want to pick something off that list, that's totally fine. What is the best deck I missed? Next up, we've got Desperate Jill's Kazoo list. Desperate Jill hit Infinite number 2, currently ranked number 3, still climbing, doing really, really well with this Kazoo list. Kazoo is really underrated because it puts up underrated stats. People don't count enough for this. Shauna gives you an unpredictable amount of power. You're not sure how many buffs so go wide or how tall this deck can get, even toward the end of the game. Mockingbird is a freaking free 9 power a lot of the time. There's a lot to speak for this deck. It is one of the better decks in Marvel Snap. It's also exceedingly dull, at least to me, so keep this in mind. That's the username you can find Desperate Jill at on Twitter. This deck needs Mockingbird, Marvel Boy, and Gilgamesh. Those 3 are required, but Kate and Sam are not. You can replace them with any old 1-drops you are so inclined to do so with. So this again was rank 2. Turn 1, you want Squirrel Girl over Ant-Man. Turn 2, generally speaking, you want Sam over Kate Bishop, which is more or less equal to Dazzler. If you don't have 1s, you play Kate. If you have a bunch of 1s, you play Dazzler. Turn 3 is Marvel Boy is like your priority because you at least have 1/1 from Sam out, and you're very likely to have played a 1-on-1 here. So that's a +2 power for Marvel Boy immediately. If you played Ant-Man, it's already +3. That's better than Shauna, and you only play Shauna if you didn't play Squirrel Girl. If not, you're going to go with some 2-droppy stuff. If you know you don't have Marvel Boy or Shauna on turn 3, you can play Kate on turn 2 in order to go Dazzler and Sam on turn 3, and that's totally fine. Turn 4 is Kazar or Shauna into 1. From here on, you sneak in Mockingbird anytime you can. Mockingbird is a big cube stealer, so if she's free or 1, you can save her for the last turn. Turn 5 is Blue Marvel or Kazar into 1, and then turn 6 is Gilgamesh or Shang with Mockingbird. And Shang is the big surprise tech piece. That's how this one steals cubes. People still don't expect Shang in this list. There's no Killmonger fundamentally in the meta, and thus this is an extremely strong list, one that is worthy of playing. It is time to talk Eson. This is our weekend review of Eson. Nothing tells me that this is a must-have card, but this is also not a skip. This is this classic Marvel Snap, very good card if you build around it. So if you like the decks that Eson goes in, this one is worth taking a look at. It is worth grabbing. A lot of those decks, Eson is totally replaceable. He's a ceiling raiser, not a floor raiser, not a requirement for the list. He doesn't give you access necessarily to the lists that he's in, for the most part, not always, for the most part, but he does make those lists better, whether it be Arishem or other lists. Eson is absolutely an excellent buy if you want to raise the ceilings of decks you already play. And you should know what those decks are. We're going to look at a few of them in this video, just to be clear. But if you don't like those decks, you don't need Eson. Hopefully that makes sense. We are again going to talk about Agamotto later. Please keep watching the video. Watch time is incredibly important for me. All right, next up we have Smiles Goodbird. This is our first Eson list. The Goodbird archetype is one of the very best right now. Eson is incredible in this list. Smiles is ranked top 10 with this version of the list that he created based on a Husky list. It's just really strong. Eson here has the ability to fundamentally bring Iron Patriot and Valentina cards in. It's not really doing much else, but bringing an Iron Patriot and Valentina card in for free is a lane winner. And if you can lane win for free with an Eson that way, whether it comes out of Blink, whether you get it out early because of Electro, or whatever, when you can get that Eson out early and it can win you those games in that way, then all of a sudden your other lane with the Infinite Magneto is so much more likely to win, and you're just like through the roof power here. It's really, really, really cool. So Husky Puppies created the original version of this that we're going to look at in a second. Husky Puppies 35. So if you don't have Eson, you can play the Husky version that we're going to look at. This is Smiles' version. He is in-game as Dr. Shrimp Puerto Rico, which is just a phenomenal name. This deck needs Blink, Red Wing, and War Machine. I know that that's 3 high series cards, but hey, 3 is not a million. If you don't have Eson, again, check the next version. That's also going to replace Valentina and Iron Patriot. If you don't have Aranya, you're looking to run Iron Fist. So nice not to have to do replacements for Ghost anymore, y'all. Ghost being Series 3, just let me tell you, makes my life easier. All right, so this is the Husky version. Husky finished in the top 10, I believe ranked 7 or 8 last season with this list. You'll note that this is fairly significantly cheaper, especially if you buy season passes, so you have Kate. Luna is the only really hard to get card here, and if you must, you can run Hope Summers in that spot. Relatively okay. Luna is better, but Hope is fine. All right, top 5 list last season for a while, ended up finishing again in the 7th spot. Turn 1, you want Aranya over Ebony Maw if War Machine is in hand. Turn 2 is Iron Patriot over Valentina. Turn 3, Electro over Red Wing, and you're only playing Electro if you already have a mover and big cards in hand. Because remember, Red Wing, it matters in this list when you play it, because you have to play something either right after to move it, or you need to play, right after to move it, or you need to have triggered Aranya when you play it to move it. You need turn 4 Blink over War Machine, or Red Wing plus move is totally fine as a turn 4 play here. Like, you can just drop Red Wing and Ghost Spider. Blink is really, really good. It's basically guaranteed after Electro to get you something important, whether it be War Machine or whether it be one of your 6 drops. It's totally fine. You can drop War Machine here, but be careful. Know the meta. Enchantress will blow you out. If you played War Machine here, you can still move Red Wing on 5. You can also play War Machine just on turn 5. You can drop a 6 if you played Electro. This is your Eson turn. You can play a 1 cost plus Blink just fine here. If you played a card you didn't care about on turn 4, like let's say you were forced to play, you moved Red Wing already, you can Blink that Red Wing, and then you can drop that if you played, oh no, because then you didn't play War Machine. Ignore me for that one. You can also play Red Wing and move on turn 5 just fine. Turn 6 is pick a 6 cost, and then you can also drop +1 if you have the extra energy. Generally speaking, you would like that to be Ebony Maw, thus War Machine's importance in this list. This is, again, a meta list. This is incredible. It can be overpowered by Hela, but it can also just beat Hela. It's a lot of numbers, y'all. A lot of numbers. There is an Arishem bundle. Arishem, spoiler, is not going to make the list. It was the literal last cut from the list. So Arishem is not going to make the top 10. We'll look at it in honorable mention, but it is one of the better decks in Marvel Snap. So thus, I think you should absolutely, yes, grab Arishem right now, if possible, for $100. I know that's a lot of money, but the 6,000 gold and 2 spotlight keys basically guarantee you an extra card out of it. $100 for 2 cards in Marvel Snap economy turns is a pretty damn good deal. You can also use that 6,000 gold on Sanctum and turn it into like 2 or 3 more Unknown Series 4 and 5 cards, which seems like a really, really great value as of right now. So I do think that the Arishem bundle is worth buying. Next up, as long as you don't own Arishem. If you own Arishem, please don't buy this. Cool. Arishem owner, no buys. Next up, we have Fothar Newman Steinbeck. I didn't even change this from the last time we did this because nothing has changed in this deck. This is still what this deck looks like. Sometimes people are running Lizard in it over Luffy. Sometimes people are running Lizard over Red Guardian. Feel free to make that change if you so choose. I don't think it's a huge difference either way. Red Guardian hitting opposing Luke Cages is great. This deck can go over the top of Hela style lists. It can go over the top of Nega style lists, but it needs to really hit. And you can have awkward draws, but this is still one of the better decks. And because the meta has sort of moved on. Luke is not super duper prevalent. It's prevalent enough that you're going to lose some games just running from Luke, but Luke is not so prevalent that like you should absolutely be worried about playing it here. Our friend Fathor Newman ended up finding this on Untapped in the absence of a better known creator. We're going to give credit to our friend Fathor Newman, who you should check out on Twitch. This deck needs Zabu, Ajax, and Man-Thing. Those three are required cards. Red Guardian here can be Rogue, Iron Patriot, U.S. Agent, Sam Wilson, Scorpion, Lizard, Laffy and Dimeback, Sanjanova, Juggernaut. Juggernaut's amazing in this list. If you don't have Anti-Venom, you're running Sarah. Sarah ends up being totally fine here. And Malekith, Invisible Woman, or Frigga if you actually own Anti-Venom. Cougar has a list that I like better for this archetype. However, the other version is one you're going to see more often and one that has every bit as high of a win rate. This is an evolutionary list that just runs Abomination. What this one wants to do is play Hazmat earlier or use Scorpion to get them to play enough cheap stuff to give you a super cheap Abomination. If you get that super cheap Abomination, you can spend a last turn going Abomination, Ajax, and Miles Morales, which is just an insane amount of power. And thus, this list is super duper strong. I just wanted to show this one too as another way to play the archetype. So this is a 59% rate in 130 games. Turn 1 Zabu is often a snap here because as long as you have your 4s in the deck, it makes the deck far stronger. Turn 2, you'll play Zabu over Iron Patriot, which is better than US Agent. The reason you also run Lizard here is because it gives you an extra really good option on 2, right? Turn 3, if you can play a 4-drop, do so. Outside of Laffy, you don't want to play Laffy. You'll play Malekith, Anti-Venom, or Man-Thing here. And then Luke is more or less equal to Dimeback outside of that. Turn 4, Malekith or Anti-Venom. It depends what's in your deck. If you're trying to thin to draw towards Ajax, for example, you want Malekith. If you're looking for a combo piece, you want Malekith. If a lot of good stuff is in your deck that you really want to hit, Anti-Venom is fine. Like it's really a 50-50 there. Malekith tends to be a better last turn, so perhaps you want to save that in case you need it. Man-Thing is your other turn 4 play. Turn 5, you have Ajax or 3+2, not 04, or 3+2. 3+2 is generally speaking perfectly fine, but again, this is not the Abomination version, so sometimes you just need to drop Ajax. And then turn 6 is Foreign Hazmat or US Agent, and that's it. If you can drop a Foreign Hazmat here, you're fine. That can be Man-Thing, that can be Malekith, as the case may be. Or Laffy, I guess. Laffy gets real big and wins a lane. Hey, I don't advertise this all the time. I try and limit it just to this video, but we have a Patreon that I think is pretty great. The people who are on it seem to like it. The $2 tier gives you access to all of our tournaments and lets you support the channel for like less than 3 cents a video. It's like barely above 2 cents a video. Meanwhile, so if you think that's good value, please check out the Patreon. We have a $5 tier that gets you early access to all these videos. All these videos get published there as soon as I make them, well before they go live most of the time. And then we have a $10 tier, which is if you would like an exclusive video every week, and we're working on getting an exclusive podcast up there too. So if you like that kind of stuff, please do check out our Patreon at patreon.com/snapjudgments. Any extra support, if you're willing, would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Next up, we have Crime a Cook, and this list wasn't going to make it until Crime came up with a version of it. And Crime did one very simple thing. Oopsie. Crime did one very simple thing here. He removed one card. I don't even remember what that card was because I thought it was Galacta. It is not Galacta. It's Elsa. He removed Elsa and put in Ghost. And Ghost lets this play against the meta. Ghost lets this beat fundamentally every deck. It puts up enough power to beat mid-range stuff. And with Shang and Enchantress, you can compete with Negative and Hela in a really, really effective way. This list is super duper strong and very powerful. So you need Mockingbird, Sasquatch, and Hope for this list. Gwenpool cannot be Galacta. Gwenpool or Galacta can be Elsa Bloodstone. You cannot play this without Elsa Bloodstone. Sorry, you cannot play this without both Gwenpool and Galacta. Elsa is a fine replacement for one of the two. In this deck, however, then we're going to see in the turn by turn. In my head, Galacta was gone, but it ends up being Elsa. Gwenpool ends up being largely better than Galacta in this list, and the big reason for that is that Gwenpool plus Mysterio is completely insane. It basically gives you a 2-cost Doctor Doom with 1 hit. All right, Kate and Sam are great. Sam in particular puts cards already on the board for Mockingbird, but Kate also gives you some nice cheap stuff to play for Mockingbird and Sasquatch, so they can be Mirage, Cable, or Iron Patriot. You want some generated cards to try and work with Sasquatch and Cable. This is the Chamo version. It is 1 card different. Again, that card is a Series 5 card, but it's now Series 4. A Series 4 card that everyone has, Elsa. Feel free to, again, run Ghost instead, because if you can consistently throw Prio, the Enchantress is completely over it. Oh, this is 2 cards different, because we're also running Shang now. What the hell? Why am I so confused about this list? What's the other card that's gone? Uh, we're running Sam, Mysterio. We're running Shang in this one. Oh, oh, he got Mockingbird. Cool. Okay. Good to know. Sorry, he has like a 70% win rate with this. I haven't actually tested it yet, but like a 70% win rate at high infinite is really, really impressive no matter what time in the season. And this one just makes perfect sense. So Ghost is absolutely brilliant here. Again, Ghost is a huge difference as a 3/5, great stats that really does make this whole room come together. Turn 1, you want Zebu over Kitty. Turn 2, you want Mysterio if Sasquatch. Sam is better than Kate if not. Turn 3, Gwen or Galacta with a snap are better than Hope. There's no more Elsa here again, because that's where the Galacta is better than Ghost. Turn 4, Gwen if Mysterio's in hand is like your god priority play, snap on it. You can also just feel free to play Galacta here. 2/2s on Hope are totally fine to get things really going next. And remember, turn 5, you want to play a lot of cards. You want Ghost and Mysterio on Hope. If you don't have them and want to play your Gwen or Galacta here, that's totally fine. Turn 6, Sasquatch, not Mockingbird, sorry, with Enchantress or Shang-Chi, and then you probably win, right? You play Sasquatch and then you control one other location. This one puts up a crazy amount of stats, and so it can compete with Hela in one lane with its numbers and another lane with Shang-Chi. Enchantress obviously completely wrecks an entire lane of whatchamacallit, of Mr. Negative gameplay, and this puts up stats with any mid-range deck in the game. Props to Crime Afoot, Crime Cook. This is amazing. Ghost is genuinely a stroke of genius for this list. Stream Team. If you'd like to see gameplay from all these decks tonight, check out the Pirate King Tucker, who will be playing some of the best decks in Marvel Snap, and Fofthorn will be reviewing a bunch of different decks from the week on tomorrow's on stream. Check them both out on Twitch. They'll also have YouTube videos up soon. I didn't want to talk about this list, but there's no way to avoid it. Clog is a major meta piece. This list is just all over the place. We've had this on both the Marvel Snap Zone tier list for quite a while, and our friend Cam Best has this on his tier list. We can't avoid it. This list is really, really good against mid-range stuff. It's really good against negative, and it's really good against Hela. Our job right now in the meta is to find decks that are good against all those, and Clog is excellent against those. I generally prefer not playing Magic. I hate Magic, but Magic is in a really safe place. There's just not a lot of Legion out there right now, and there's not a lot of like Snowguard or anything else that really gives Magic fits, and thus you should be relatively fine unless they get a lucky Nico playing Magic and clogging the crap out of people. Also, Magic has extra safety against everything but Legion in a clog list, because if they're trying to counter Magic, that gives you a really, really easy lane to clog on them. I'm going to credit MarvelSnapZone.com here, but feel free to check out Cam Best in a Snap on YouTube, one of the best Marvel Snap creators. That's the two places you could find this list outside of here. This deck needs Victoria Hand and Misery. Those are your two required cards. Kate can be Iron Patriot, and we have an entirely other version. The original person who thought of Victoria Hand and Clog is a player named Honifer. Absolutely great player. This is Honifer's Victoria Hand Junk. You see the current version is skewed more toward Junk instead of being skewed toward playing playing the Victoria Hand stuff. That's because the top meta decks demand more junk, but either version is still a perfectly fine play. You just have to be a little more disciplined to play the Honifer version. This has no bad matches, but it has limited cube equity. The problem is once you've clogged a lane, good players just like, all right, screw you, bye. You don't get as many snaps in, you don't get as many big cube games. So, like, basically, Cannonball guarantees you wins, right? And guaranteed wins means opponents should lose. So the better your opponents are, the more likely they are to just walk away. The more likely they are to take one look at those cards and be like, no, no, thank you. So turn 1 is Hood. You can play Nico if it's the right spell. Turn 2, Kate over Ivona. Turn 3 is the first Clogger you have or Magic. Turn 4, Titania with Hood. Titania or Hood with Viper or Goblin. You can play Titania or Viper with Goblin just fine. You can play Hood with Viper here just fine. Misery on Hood or Debris is the other big play here. If you play Misery on Hood, you now have 2 demons and a million rocks all over the place is usually a win. Please remember the real snap condition here is snap the turn before you clog any lane, because once you've clogged a lane, the opponent should be running. You want to make sure that you get 2 cubes out of that where humanly possible. Also, obviously, know what decks run Killmonger. Right now, that's kind of only Mill and maybe Surfer, though. And Surfer's disappeared. Turn 5, Magic and Ones over your last clog. Turn 6, Gore, or make damn sure one lane is clogged and you're ahead in it. And then turn 7, Cannonball plus whatever, demons generally, or Gore. You win. This list is wins. It's one of the better lists in the game at just winning Again, your cube equity will not be as insanely huge as you would like it to be, though. All right. Did you know I write an article every day on Marvel Snap Zone? If you're interested in the printed word, I basically do a deck of the day. My featured deck from the video becomes a write-up on Marvel Snap Zone. So if you'd like to get some extra tidbits or stuff like that, please do check out our friends at Marvel Snap Zone. Next up, we have the best Chamo. MSL Chamo is one of the better players in Marvel Snap. He and Alliance Lowell, by the way, are members of the Snap Judgments Alliance Snap Legends, one of our extended family of alliances. And this is I don't know, freaking awesome. It's a really, really great idea. It's fairly similar to the previous Sasquatch list, but instead it's running a more mid-range game plan. This is like the class of the mid-range. This is the class of the Wiccan list. And I know a lot of people got Wiccan lists this week, so I wanted to feature it. But this list win rate is just huge. If you are dying to Hela, there's another version to play we'll look at shortly. You can find Chamo at twitch.tv/Chamo92. This deck needs Mockingbird, Sam, Galacta, Wiccan, and Kate. Those four are non-negotiable. You can sort of try without Sam, but it's so good with Mockingbird, it's really hard to do without. Galacta, Wiccan, Kate, and Mockingbird are non-negotiables. Please note we're not running Mysterio here, so like that's part of the reason we really, really need Sam. Iron Patriot can be Lizard or Cable, totally fine replacements, especially because you're running Enchantress here. Enchantress on Lizard will pull it back to 6 power if you're not aware. Rocket and Groot, Speed, and Copycat can be Negasonic, Juggernaut, and Gladiator. They are your generically good 3-drop slots. If you are dying to Hela, this version from our friend Ika is strictly better against Hela. Feel free to play it. You'll win a lot more games against Hela, but you'll be a little worse against the general field. This list is also absolutely stellar, though. All right, so top 10 again. Turn 1 is Quicksilver. Turn 2, Psylocke if Wiccan or Galacta. Kate, if you don't have a 3-drop, is really good over Iron Patriot, and Iron Patriot is a snap condition if. So good players know that if you play Iron Patriot and then you are able to win that lane, your snap is going to chase them away if they're any good. Take your free wins that way where possible, assuming your opponent is good. Psylocke, if Wiccan or Galacta, is obviously really good. Remember that Psylocke on 2 can mean Mr. Negative, although if you play Quicksilver, they probably know it's Wiccan or Galacta. And look, opponents should generally speaking be running on your Wiccan plays. That's why you should snap before Wiccan, right? Like whenever opponent plays Wiccan and doesn't snap me, I feel like I got away with free money. I know that the second they snap, they're only getting 1 cube, but they could have had 2 if they did it sooner. And Sam is your other turn 2 play. Sorry. Turn 3, Wiccan, snap before you Wiccan, generally speaking. Again, if you Wiccan and snap, unless I have the absolute nut setup, I'm running, right? But you want to keep me in, because like if you snap before Wiccan, I might be sticking around to C. If I'm sticking around to C, now I'm getting 2 cubes, but I know I'm probably running off that Wiccan play. Wiccan is better than whatever 3 you want to play after it. Remember, Rocket Groot is great with priority, but mediocre on turn 3 without priority. Turn 4 is Wiccan or Galacta, and Galacta is also a snap potentially on turn 3, but because Galacta on turn 3 is so much more stats, it's an extra 3 stats. It turns Galacta into a 4/15. That's a lot. Wiccan or Galacta is better than 2/2. If you can go Wiccan on 3 into Galacta on 4, or Galacta on 3 into Wiccan on 4, holy crap, for the love of God, please tell me you snapped. And that's better than 2/2. You have a ton of 2s in this list. Don't hesitate, by the way, to play Psylocke on turn 4 if you need to, because having that extra energy on turn 5 can be huge, because that gives you like a Galacta that you just drew into a 2-drop on turn 5. Galacta plus 2 if you have Wiccan, or you can play Mockingbird here. Galacta plus 3, you get the idea. And then turn 6 is Enchantress Plus. You're just sort of playing whatever you can to get the most stats you can and win the game. That's a really, really good spot for that. Drop that surprise speed for a 3/10, whatever the hell Copycat became, stuff like that. Or just Enchantress to turn the damn opponent's game plan off. Awesome list. The Ika version is awesome. Wiccan's back to being in a really good place. As the meta has gotten greedy, Wiccan says, if you're greedy and I get my Wiccan, I should be able to counter you a reasonable amount of the time. It is time for our final deck, which means it's time for our Agamotto review. We're going to talk about Agamotto last here. Agamotto is a must-buy card. This is 6 straight months of must-buy season pass cards. Like, if you looked at Iron Patriot, you're like, oh, I should own Iron Patriot. That card's incredible. If you looked at Sam Wilson, like, oh, man, that goes in a million decks. I should have Sam Wilson. If you looked at Galacta, we're like, oh, crap, Galacta's an incredible card. I should make sure I have Galacta. All of these cards are must-own cards, and we can keep going, right? Agamotto is one of those cards, except it's even cooler because like it offers a ridiculous variety of gameplay. It feels fresh and new in a way that almost nothing has. Please do go buy Agamotto as soon as humanly possible, or win it by commenting here. All right, day 1, number 1, Cougar. Cougar is actually currently ranked 2 behind a player I don't know with this, but he's like a few snap points behind the number 1 player. He seems to have been at work or school and not playing for the last little bit because his snap points haven't changed. But Cougar hit number 1 with this and then maintained number 1, knocking off several challengers who came in at number 1 after that with this Black Knight Eson Agamotto list. This list is absolutely incredible. It is just really, really hard to beat because it's so hard to know the output range that it can put out. Once it has Iron Patriot and Valentina, you don't know what sixes it has, right? You don't know what Eson's going to pull between that and Agamotto. You don't know if they're going to play Agamotto or they have other things. You don't know what Emperor Hulkling is. The output range being so complicated here is extremely strong. And plus, you can buff a lot of those cards even bigger if they decide to just cold drop a Victoria hand. This is again Cougar's list. This deck needs Black Knight, Iron Patriot, Agamotto, and Victoria Hand. I think you can actually probably do without Victoria Hand here. If you were so inclined, I would run White Queen instead, I believe. I would also replace Frigga for White Queen, too, now that I've played it a little more. Frigga can also just be Luke Cage if you are so inclined. Luke Cage is just really solid. Valentina can be Mirage here. That is the only replacement. Valentina is very hard to replace and very, very, very good here. Eson and Hulkling can be Magneto and Infinite. There is another version we'll look at that does that instead. We've got 2 very different versions. This is Rarm's Black Hand. This is the base version of what this list came from. This is what the list was before the Cougar version, before Eson and Agamotto came out. This was a little less consistent, but it had Juggernaut, and Juggernaut's a freaking cube thief. This one leans a little bit more into the Victoria Hand, but it's a little expensive. So if you want to check that out, also check out our friend Roran Plays over on Twitch. Plus, we have BitTwiddle's list. This is not the same list. This one is basically an Eson list instead of a Black Knight list. This one says if you don't have Black Knight, you can run an Eson list and still be able to compete in Marvel Snap. This is the one I used for Infinite. I've been getting messages all day about various people that are absolutely dominating with this list too. So if you want to play another awesome list, give this one some run. We're going to go turn by turn for the Cougar list, but again, let's look at what it is so you don't get it confused with the other two. And this is, again, fundamentally the rank 1 list. It's at worst like a top 3 list right now. Turn 1, Black Knight over Quinjet. Generally speaking, you can drop Quinjet if you already have a spell you want to play, but it's a toss-up between the two. You can also play Blade if you have Hulkling or Eson, but only if you have Ghost Rider in hand. Turn 2 is, generally speaking, a 1 cost. One are even better than Iron Patriot or Valentina here. But remember, Iron Patriot generally over Valentina, and that Frigga should say, excuse me, Victoria Hand. Sorry about that. But okay. You don't really want to Frigga Victoria Hand first off in this list. That is not what Frigga is here for. Frigga is here for Iron Patriot card or for like your shard, because then you can play the shard and then Eson a shard in, and that's really, really strong. Or the the what's her name? The Valentina card. If you don't feel like you can win that Iron Patriot lane, Valentina is perfectly fine. Valentina is also often better if you have Quinjet, especially if you have Quinjet and Frigga, because if you go Quinjet Valentina, then you can play a 6 for 3, and then you can Frigga it right away on turn 4, and that's just crazy powerful. Turn 3 is Lady Sif. If she'll hit a big, and you have Ghost Rider or Black Knight in play, you can also just drop a 2 cost here perfectly fine without worrying about it. You're very, very rarely going to play Frigga here. You're dropping one of your 2s, or you're dropping Lady Sif. Turn 4, Ghost Rider Ebony Blade is your intended play. Also, potentially that Valentina card here is perfectly fine. Remember that Eson is great after after discarded with Ghost Rider. Ebony Blade is great as well. Ebony Blade can cost 3, as remember if you got that Quinjet out, although now we're running into slight energy problems, but if you got that going, please feel free to Frigga here as well if you can play, if you on turn 3 manage to get either the Ebony Blade or the 6-drop from Valentina out. Turn 5, Agamotto is really perfectly fine. You can also play a generator here. Iron Patriot card plus Frigga is really, really good here. Any of the above. You can also do any of the turn 4 plays. Frigga is fine here on either on the Ebony Blade as well, or on the Valentina card. Turn 6 is a 6-drop or a combo of cheap generated stuff. If you didn't get Eson out now, Eson is often very strong. It just like you put a bunch of power everywhere. Figure out where you're at threat, drop Eson. Eson will grab something else, you'll win. Emperor Hulkling is also obviously often a very good play, depending on what he is. He hit Ultron a time for me and got me an 8-cuber. He's also hit Gore for me. And just like the opponent feels like they're totally safe in this like 30 power lane, and you drop Emperor Hulkling and he alone is like 30 power, and you're just like, thank you, bye. Yeah, really, really cool stuff. This list is very, very good. And again, we have plenty of other versions on it. Check the link in the description of this video for links to all the decks. Question of the day. The question of the day for this video is always what other decks were considered. And two decks that really are like absolute borderline are the crazy Thanos list. This may or may not be running Agamotto right now. Sometimes it is. It is fundamentally a Wiccan Thanos list that is very strong. Crazy finished in the top 10 with it last season. We also have Arishem's top deck. This is currently the top Arishem from 90 to 100. This might be it, but I'm not convinced we've hit the right Arishem build. I think there might be a better Arishem build out there, and I'm not 100% sure where that is right now. That's part of the reason Arishem is in here. I already told you Arishem was the list that was closest to being in the top 10 that didn't actually make it. This is sort of a heavy Arishem, but it's also an incredibly, incredibly strong list. The thing that kept both of those lists out is this Darkhawk counter. This is the other thing that was really close to getting in there. Darkhawk being back. Oh no, this version doesn't run it. Okay, so Kate or one other card in this list could easily be. They're all over the meta right now. I keep running into, in order to counter Agamotto, Gorgon. So if you have Gorgon in the meta, if you have Darkhawk, if you have Cassandra Nova, and all of these are in the meta in order to better counter the Agamotto list, you're also incidentally beating the crap out of Arishem and Thanos, and that was just enough to keep them to the honorable mention. This list is awesome, by the way, and if you have access to it, strongly consider playing it, please. Then we have Captain Latveria. Captain Latveria is the my Doom 2099 list that has been one of the best lists since Doom 2099 came out, but everyone seems to have stopped playing it. That's it. This list is incredible. Its win rate is still through the roof. No one's playing it right now for whatever reason, thus it's a little lower. Speaking of lists people aren't really playing, the Alex Kochia Bullseye list is one of the best lists in Marvel Snap, and again, people have started playing it less. It's still a top deck, but because it is less played, because nothing new has come out for these two lists, they are being less played by a little bit, and thus they are less prominent. We also have the small good cards. Again, people, once they put Luke Cage in this, should be playing this because this list can beat everything, including Hela. It sort of dies to negative, but whatever. And it's okay against negative, but you run Luke Cage in it over Red Guardian, because otherwise it just straight up dies to anything with Affliction. So Red Guardian gave it an okay matchup against negative, but otherwise it just sort of dies, and you have to keep Nico for like the right spells. It's really, really rough. But if you're good with this list is one of the better lists in Marvel Snap. Cosmo and US Agent are still game winners as well. Finally, we have Sizer Move. Sizer Move should beat everything. I don't think it wants Red Wing. I think it's back to wanting Mobius. But this absolutely feasts off negative. This absolutely feasts off Hela because of the Cosmo and the Alioth. This absolutely feasts off the mid-range decks. I am not sure why this isn't the best deck in the game right now, except that I cannot find a single person playing it right now. I actually need to ask Sizer why the hell he's not playing this, because this is the best. The last list that's not here is Scar. I'm pretty sure that when we do this next week, the Scar Surtur list will be on the list once the new card Star Brand comes out next week, but that's not out yet, and people aren't playing that right now because that's not out, except Desmond has a version with Agamotto that might be insane, but I haven't had a chance to test that, so we'll talk more about that later when I get some more data. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. I'm going to say thank you to a whole bunch of people at the end of this long video, and then I'll say bye to all of you. So thank you to first, oh no, I still have last month, Ocularis, the Patreon of the month, except it's actually MBTB Shannon, who is actually now just Shannon, who is our patron of the month. Sorry, this is the last week's version of this slide. Thank you to Abigail Houston, Mandatory Burnout, Burnout My Alliance Leader, Regardless, Always Kind, LAB, Inc., I Am Frostman, R, Hota Navarrete, Thinking Poker, Primed Ryan of the Primed Mind app. Check it out. Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Woody. Check out Ryan Wood, YT. Really, really cool deck that I'll be featuring soon from Woody. He's got a cool Darkhawk thing going. We got Kertix Lee, the King of Questions, Koi Ray, who's quite the heel, Kazushi, who's quite kind, Archangel 3K, the end of the 4Ks, Black Dahlia, Alliance Leader, Perfos Alliance Leader, the Goat Seeker, Alliance Leaders galore, Hallowed, Nightmare, Only Fots, our friend Synth, Fat Nick, Dirty Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, what's up Kerfuff, Cables, Finally Home Resting, Ginger Prime, Ratco, Haplo, what's happening? Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, the Notorious Bizha, Black Jeebus 23, notorious for other reasons, XOC and Skippy G, Rhyming Friends, Jessica Gamble, Sup Jess, Mr. Slusheth, winner of Snap Judgments League Season 1, the King of Bros brought the great Kazoo, Werewolf, Kev, Sihoda, Luna Chris, Clam, Colonel Forbin, sup Forbin, Rob Silverman, Middle Row Pride, M. Holland, David G. Wingfield, Stephen, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B. and Mr. Craig Sterry. I almost missed Jason B. Oh my gosh. Matt V. Ren Wrench, Corwin, John Q. and Jimmy McQ. It's Q down. Yes Stout 8th. Sage. 1. Big Man. Milkman for Reals. Cactus Jack. What's up, Cactus? BG. Quid Pro Joe. Snap Decisions Joe. Mod Supreme Models. The Green Goblin. Unibot. Flan 56. The Fuzzy Dunlop. Spectrumix. Hoot. Shannon, who we talked about earlier. Matt H, the only one we need. DJ Mikey Hijinks. No frickin' flex. Nick, the Greek Geek. Hopefully you're doing well, Nikki. Much love. Zodrex, the King of Canada. Denman Falcon. Falthorn Newman. Check him out on Twitch and YouTube. Denman is on YouTube. King of Canada is on Twitch and YouTube. Zodrex is on Twitch. Nick the Greek Geek is on Twitch. Got a lot of creators here, fam. We got Jonesy's Triple Threat over on YouTube. Our friend Two Ties, who wears two ties. Lauren Badev, Snap on This Pod, and Marvel Snap Zone, the best around. The Pirate King Tucker, Twitch and YouTube, and the podcast coming out tomorrow here. And of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for Deuces. I'll see you tomorrow with another Snap Take. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I had a really good time making it.